A single dad's C.I. saw him at a supermarket. Her whispered threat changed everything. Cole Bennett's hands trembled as he reached for the discounted milk, the only kind he could afford for Harper this week. Monday's layoff list had his name on it. He knew that much. Between the dairy shelves and the checkout line, he spotted her, Vivian Cross, the new CEO, standing frozen like she'd wandered into the wrong world. Then a man in an expensive suit stepped close, hissing through his teeth that she couldn't lead without a man. Vivian went pale, her eyes locked on Cole. She moved fast, whispering one sentence that made his blood stop. "Pretend you're my boyfriend, or you're fired." 3 seconds. That's all he had. Cole had no time to think. The man in the suit turned his head, scanning the aisle like he owned the place. Vivian's fingers dug into Cole's wrist. Her grip was cold, desperate. He'd seen her face on the company newsletter last month when they announced the leadership change. New CEO, first woman to hold the position. The warehouse guys had joked about it over lunch. Now she was holding on to him like he was the only thing keeping her upright. He let the milk carton drop back into the cooler. His mind raced through the math. Rent due in 5 days. Harper's field trip permission slip sitting on the counter at home because he couldn't afford the $20 fee. The envelope from the hospital still unopened because he already knew what the number would look like. Monday's meeting in the break room where they'd call out names and hand over severance packets. His name was on that list. He'd heard it from someone who'd heard it from someone else. Vivian's voice came out sharper this time, low enough that only he could hear. "Please, just stand here. Act like you know me." The man in the suit was closer now. Older, expensive watch. Hair that looked like it cost more to maintain than Cole made in a week. He stopped 3 feet away and looked Vivian up and down, like she was a problem he was solving in real time. Then his eyes shifted to Cole. The judgment was instant. Vivian's hand slid into Cole's. Her palm was sweating. "Vivian," the man said. His voice was smooth, controlled the kind of tone that came from years of getting his way. "I didn't know you shopped at places like this." Vivian's jaw tightened. She didn't let go of Cole's hand. "Brandon? I didn't expect to see you here either." Brandon. The name clicked. Cole had heard it before. Someone in HR had mentioned it in passing. Ex-husband. Still on the board of directors. Still had enough pull to make Vivian's job harder than it needed to be. Brandon's eyes stayed on Cole for another beat, then returned to Vivian with something that looked like pity. "You're making this harder on yourself," Brandon said. His tone didn't change. "The board's already talking. You know that. A woman in your position needs stability. Support. You can't lead a company like ours if you're alone. People notice." Vivian's fingers tightened around Cole's. Her voice came out steady, but Cole could feel the tremor running through her hand. "I'm not alone." Brandon's eyebrows lifted. He looked at Cole again, this time, slower, taking in the worn jacket, the scuffed boots, the kind of tired that came from pulling double shifts in a freezing warehouse. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Really?" Vivian didn't flinch. She turned toward Cole, and for a second, he saw the calculation behind her eyes. She was weighing options, measuring risk. Then she leaned in slightly, just enough to sell it, and her voice softened in a way that felt rehearsed, but not fake. "Brandon, this is Cole. My boyfriend." The word hung in the air between them. Cole felt his stomach drop. He didn't move, didn't speak. Vivian's eyes were locked on his, silently begging him not to blow this. Brandon tilted his head, studying them both, like he was looking for cracks in the story. "Boyfriend?" Brandon repeated. The word came out flat. "How long has this been going on?" Vivian didn't miss a beat. "A few months. We've been keeping it private." Brandon's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Private? Of course." He shifted his weight, crossing his arms. "And what do you do?" "Cole." Cole's throat was dry. He forced himself to meet Brandon's gaze. "I work at the company. Warehouse." Brandon's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or confirmation of something he'd already assumed. A warehouse worker. How convenient. Vivian's voice cut in before Cole could respond. "We should go. We have dinner plans." Brandon didn't move. He looked at Vivian for a long moment, then at Cole, then back to Vivian. "The board meeting is Monday. You know that. They're going to ask questions about a lot of things." He let the words sit there heavy and deliberate. Then he stepped back, adjusting his jacket. "Enjoy your dinner." He walked away without looking back. Vivian didn't let go of Cole's hand until Brandon turned the corner and disappeared toward the front of the store. When she finally released him, Cole felt the absence of her grip like a sudden drop in temperature. She stepped back, running a hand through her hair. Her composure cracked for just a second, and he saw the exhaustion underneath. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't have another option." Cole stared at her. His mind was still catching up to what had just happened. "You just told your ex-husband I'm your boyfriend." "I know." Vivian's voice was clipped, controlled again. "And now he's going to tell the board, which means we have a problem." Cole felt the anger rising in his chest, slow and steady. "We don't have a problem. You have a problem. I don't even know you." Vivian looked at him directly, and for the first time he saw something other than desperation. She looked tired, cornered, like someone who'd been fighting too long and was running out of moves. "You're on the layoff list. Monday morning. Your name is third from the top." Cole's breath caught. He didn't ask how she knew. The answer didn't matter. She was the CEO. She knew everything. Vivian took a step closer, lowering her voice. "I can take you off that list. Right now. Tonight. One phone call. In exchange for what? Pretend to be my boyfriend until the board meeting. That's it. Show up to a few dinners. Be seen with me in public. Let people think we're together. After Monday, we're done. You keep your job. I keep mine." Cole felt the weight of it settling over him. He thought about Harper, about the permission slip, about the envelope from the hospital, about the milk he'd been holding 30 seconds ago because it was the only thing he could afford. Vivian was watching him waiting. She didn't look like a CEO anymore. She looked like someone who'd run out of options and was betting everything on a stranger. "What if I say no?" Cole asked. Vivian's expression didn't change. "Then you're fired Monday morning, and I'll be out by the end of the week. Brandon will make sure of it." Cole looked down at his hands. They were still shaking. He thought about the 3 seconds he'd had to make a choice in the dairy aisle. Turned out he still didn't have an answer. But he knew what happened if he walked away. Vivian seemed to sense the shift. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. "That's my personal number," she said, holding it out. "If you say yes, call me tonight. We'll work out the details. If you say no, I understand. But either way, I need to know now." Cole took the card. The paper felt thin between his fingers. Vivian turned and walked toward the exit without waiting for an answer. He stood there in the dairy aisle holding a business card in one hand and nothing in the other. The cooler hummed beside him. Somewhere in the distance, a shopping cart squeaked across the tile floor. He looked down at the card. Her handwriting was small, precise, controlled. He thought about Harper, about the field trip she'd miss, about the job he'd lose, about the 3 seconds that had already passed. He pulled out his phone. Cole called her that night after Harper went to bed. Vivian answered on the second ring. Her voice was quieter than it had been in the supermarket, like she'd been waiting, but wasn't sure he'd actually go through with it. They agreed to meet the next morning. It was Wednesday. 4 days until the board meeting. They met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the company headquarters. She was already there when he arrived, sitting in the back corner, with her hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. She looked different without the panic, sharper, more in control. She gestured to the chair across from her, and Cole sat down. The terms came out clinical and precise. They'd say they met 6 months ago. A chance encounter. Nothing dramatic. He'd asked her out. She'd said yes. They'd kept it quiet because of the professional complications. She'd cover the story. He just had to show up and not contradict her. 6 months, Cole repeated. He tried to imagine what his life had looked like half a year ago. Harper had still been in the hospital then. He'd been working 60-hour weeks just to keep up with the bills. People are going to ask questions, Vivian nodded. Let them. We don't owe anyone details. Just stay consistent. Same story, every time. What about Harper? Vivian's expression shifted slightly. Your daughter. She's 7, right? Cole didn't ask how she knew. She'll notice if I'm suddenly spending time with someone. She'll ask questions. Then we tell her the truth, Vivian said. Not the whole truth. Just enough. We're helping each other. She doesn't need to know the rest. Cole looked down at the table. The wood grain was worn smooth from years of use. He thought about how many conversations had happened here. How many deals. How many lies dressed up as something else. Vivian reached into her bag and pulled out a folded check. She set it on the table between them. Cole didn't touch it. $10,000, she said quietly. You'll get this after the board meeting. That's the agreement. I'm not paying you up front. This only works if we both see it through. Cole stared at the check lying on the table. The number was written out in her precise handwriting. $10,000. It was more money than he'd seen in one place in years. Enough to clear the hospital debt. Enough to buy Harper new shoes. Enough to stop lying awake at night doing math that never added up. But it was still 4 days away. 4 days of pretending. 4 days of risk. This isn't charity, she added. It's a transaction. You're providing a service. I'm paying for it after you deliver. That's all this is. Cole met her eyes. And if something goes wrong before Monday, then we both lose, Vivian said. But at least we tried. She pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm taking you off the layoff list right now. By tomorrow morning, your supervisor will get the updated roster. You're safe. That part is done regardless of what happens Monday. Cole felt the relief and the guilt hit him at the same time. She was giving him job security before he'd earned it. Before he'd done anything. It felt wrong and necessary at the same time. What do I tell people at work? Nothing, Vivian said. Let them draw their own conclusions. If anyone asks directly, just say we're dating. Don't elaborate. The less you say, the fewer holes they can poke in the story. She slid the check back into her bag. The transaction was clear now. 4 days, 1 board meeting, then the money and freedom for both of them. Cole nodded. Okay, I'm in. The first test came 2 days later. Vivian wanted him to attend a charity gala that Friday night. She sent over a suit Thursday afternoon. It arrived at his apartment in a garment bag with a note that said the tailor would meet him that evening to make adjustments. The suit fit better than anything Cole had ever worn. Harper watched him try it on with wide eyes. Why do you have a fancy suit, Dad? She asked from the doorway of his bedroom. Cole looked at himself in the mirror. He barely recognized the person staring back. I have to go to a work thing tomorrow night. It's formal. With Miss V, Cole turned around. Harper was holding her stuffed rabbit, the one she'd had since she was 3. Her expression was curious, but careful, like she was trying to figure out if this was something she should worry about. Cole knelt down so he was at her level. Yeah, with Miss V. She's my friend. We're helping each other out with some work stuff. Harper tilted her head. Is she your girlfriend? The question caught Cole off guard. He'd rehearsed answers for co-workers, for strangers, for people at the gala. He hadn't prepared for this. Harper was still watching him, waiting. Cole took a breath. It's complicated, sweetheart. Kind of. But she's nice. I think you'd like her. Harper's face fell slightly. She looked down at her rabbit. Does that mean you don't have time for me anymore? Cole's chest tightened. He pulled Harper into a hug. No. Never. You're the most important person in my life. That's never going to change. This is just something I have to do for work. Okay. Harper nodded against his shoulder, but Cole could feel her uncertainty. He made a mental note to spend Saturday doing something special with her, just the two of them. The gala was held in a hotel ballroom with chandeliers that looked like they cost more than Cole's annual salary. Vivian met him at the entrance. She was wearing a black dress that made her look untouchable. She smiled when she saw him, and it looked almost real. She slipped her arm through his like they'd done this 100 times before. "Just follow my lead," she said quietly. "Smile. Nod. If anyone asks how we met, stick to the story." They walked into the ballroom together, eyes turned toward them immediately. Cole felt the weight of every stare. Vivian's hand tightened on his arm, but her expression didn't change. She guided him through the crowd, stopping to make introductions. Board members, senior executives, people whose names Cole recognized from the company directory, but had never spoken to. They all looked at him the same way Brandon had, like they were trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense. One of the board members, an older man with silver hair and a hard smile, shook Cole's hand and held it a beat too long. "So you're the one Vivian's been hiding? Warehouse, right?" Cole nodded. "That's right." The man's smile widened. "Must be quite a change of pace for you. These events, Vivian's world." Vivian's voice cut in smoothly. "Cole's been very supportive. It's nice to have someone who understands the value of hard work." The man laughed, but it didn't sound friendly. "I'm sure it is." He released Cole's hand and turned back to Vivian. "We'll talk Monday. There's a lot to cover." Vivian's expression didn't shift, but Cole felt her tense beside him. The man walked away. Vivian exhaled slowly, then turned to Cole with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That went well." "Did it?" Cole asked. "You didn't break character. It's all that matters." They spent the rest of the night playing their roles. Vivian introduced him to more people than he could keep track of. Cole smiled, nodded, gave vague answers to questions that felt like traps. By the time they left, his face hurt from holding the expression. Vivian was quiet on the drive back. She dropped him off at his apartment building and sat in the car for a moment before he got out. "You did fine," she said. Her voice was softer than it had been all night. "Better than fine, actually. Thank you." Cole looked at her. In the dim light from the street lamp, she looked tired. Human. Not like the CEO who'd cornered him in the supermarket. Not like the woman who'd offered him a deal without blinking. Just tired. "What happens if this doesn't work?" Vivian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Then we both lose. But at least we tried. The weekend should have been a break, but it wasn't." Saturday morning, Vivian called. She said it would help sell the story if people saw them together as a family. Harper needed to meet her. Cole's stomach dropped, but he agreed. They met at a park that afternoon. Vivian showed up in jeans and a sweater, looking more like a regular person than Cole had ever seen her. Harper was shy at first, hiding behind Cole's leg. Vivian crouched down to Harper's level. "Hi, Harper. I'm Vivian. Your dad's told me a lot about you." Harper peeked out from behind Cole. "He has," Vivian smiled. "He said you're really smart, and that you have a stuffed rabbit you take everywhere." Harper pulled the rabbit out from behind her back. "His name is Cotton." "Cotton?" Vivian repeated. "That's a perfect name." She stood up and gestured toward the playground. "Want to show me the swings?" Harper looked up at Cole. He nodded. She took Vivian's hand tentatively and led her toward the swing set. Cole followed a few steps behind, watching them together. Vivian asked Harper about school, about her favorite subjects, about Cotton's adventures. Harper opened up slowly, her voice getting louder and more confident. By the end of the hour, she was showing Vivian how to pump her legs on the swing, laughing when Vivian pretended to be scared of going too high. When Harper ran off to the slide, Vivian sat down on the bench next to Cole. They watched Harper play in silence for a moment. Then Vivian spoke, her voice quieter than usual. She's sweet. You're doing a good job with her. Cole didn't know what to say to that. Thanks. I mean it, Vivian said. It can't be easy, doing this alone. Cole looked at her. There was something in her expression he hadn't seen before. Vulnerability, maybe. Or just exhaustion that matched his own. You know about her mom? Vivian nodded. I read your file. I'm sorry. Cole looked back at Harper. She was at the top of the slide waving at them. He waved back. It was 2 years ago. Cancer. Harper doesn't talk about it much anymore. I think she's starting to forget what she looked like. Vivian was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. My mother lost someone too. My father, when I was young. She said the forgetting is normal. It doesn't mean Harper loved her any less. Cole glanced at Vivian. It was the first personal thing she'd shared. I didn't know that. Not many people do, Vivian said. She looked down at her hands. My mother raised me alone, built her own business from nothing. She's the reason I wanted this job, to prove I could do what she did. Be strong like her. Harper climbed down from the slide and ran back over, grabbing Vivian's hand. Miss V, do you want to see the ducks by the pond? Dad and I named them last week. Vivian looked at Cole, and he saw the question in her eyes. He nodded. Harper pulled Vivian toward the pond, chattering about the ducks and their names, and which one was the friendliest. Cole followed a few steps behind, watching them together. It felt too easy, too real. He reminded himself this was temporary, a transaction. 4 days and it would be over. But the reminder felt thinner every time he repeated it. Monday morning arrived like a weight dropping. Cole got to work early. The layoff meeting had been scheduled for 9. He watched from the warehouse floor as his supervisor called names and handed out packets. Curtis got called. 2 other guys Cole had worked with for years. His name never came up. When it was over, Curtis walked past him without a word. The look on Curtis's face said everything. At lunch, Curtis cornered him by the loading dock. He leaned against the railing and crossed his arms. So it's true. You're dating the CEO. Cole didn't look up from his sandwich. Yeah, Curtis laughed, but it wasn't a friendly sound. Man, that's one way to keep your job. Rest of us had to actually work for it. Cole's jaw tightened. He set the sandwich down and looked at Curtis directly. I work just as hard as you do. Sure, Curtis said. But you're the only one sleeping your way into job security. Convenient timing, don't you think, right before layoffs? Cole stood up. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. You don't know what you're talking about. Curtis held up his hands in mock surrender. Hey, no judgment. If I had the chance, maybe I'd do the same. Just saying it looks bad. People notice. People talk. Cole walked away before he said something he'd regret. The conversation stuck with him for the rest of the day. He thought about Curtis's words, about the way people had looked at him at the gala, about the lie he was living, and how it was starting to crack under the weight of everyone's judgment. That afternoon, Vivian called him into her office. He'd never been to the executive floor before. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Vivian's assistant waved him through without a word. Vivian was standing by the window when he walked in, looking out at the city below. She turned when she heard the door close. Her face was pale. We have a problem, she said. Cole's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Vivian walked over to her desk and opened her laptop. She turned the screen toward him. It was a video. Security footage from the supermarket. The timestamp showed the day they'd met. The angle captured everything. Brandon confronting Vivian. Cole stepping in. Vivian grabbing his hand. The whole exchange. Brandon has this, Vivian said. Her voice was tight. He's planning to show it at the board meeting Thursday. He'll say we fabricated the timeline, that we lied about when we met, that I'm paying you to pretend. Cole stared at the screen. The footage didn't lie. It showed exactly what had happened. Did you know there were cameras? No, Vivian said. I wasn't thinking. I just needed to get out of that situation. She closed the laptop and sat down in her chair. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked defeated. If he shows this, it's over. The board will vote me out. They'll say I'm unstable, a liability, and you'll be collateral damage. Brandon will make sure of that. Cole felt the anger rising again, but this time it was mixed with something else. Fear. So what do we do? Vivian rubbed her temples. I don't know. I've been going over it all morning. Every scenario ends the same way. We lose. Cole thought about the check still sitting in Vivian's bag. The $10,000 he hadn't received yet. The money that was supposed to clear his debts and give Harper a better life. He thought about Curtis's accusations, about the way Harper had looked at him when she asked if Vivian was his girlfriend, about the lie that had seemed so simple 4 days ago. Then we tell the truth, Cole said. Vivian looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Excuse me. Not all of it, Cole clarified, but enough. We admit it started as a setup, a panic move to get Brandon off your back. But then it became real. People fake relationships all the time. What matters is what happens after. What we choose to do next. Vivian leaned back in her chair. She was quiet for a long moment, turning the idea over. That's a risk, a huge one. The board doesn't like being lied to. Everything about this is a risk, Cole said. But if we're going down, we might as well go down telling our version, not his. Vivian's expression shifted. Something like respect crossed her face. We'd need leverage, something to take the focus off us and put it on Brandon. What kind of leverage? Vivian's eyes sharpened. She stood up and paced to the window. Brandon's not clean. He's been playing board politics for years. There has to be something. I just need to find it. Cole watched her. For the first time since the supermarket, she looked like she was fighting back instead of just surviving. How much time do we have? 3 days, Vivian said. The meeting is Thursday morning. She turned back to him. Can you hold it together until then? No matter what people say. Cole thought about Curtis, about the stairs, about Harper asking if he still had time for her. Yeah, I can hold it together. Vivian nodded. Then let's make sure we have something worth fighting for. The leverage came Tuesday evening. Cole was making dinner for Harper when someone knocked on his door. He wasn't expecting visitors. Harper ran to answer it, and Cole heard her gasp. He wiped his hands and walked to the entrance. Standing in his doorway was an elegant woman in a tailored coat. She looked like an older version of Vivian, with the same sharp eyes and controlled posture. Mr. Bennett, the woman said. Her voice was cool, measured. I'm Constance Cross, Vivian's mother. May I come in? Cole hadn't expected this. He nodded and stepped aside. Constance walked in like she owned the place, taking in the small living room with a single sweeping glance. Harper retreated to the couch with her rabbit, watching with wide eyes. Constance sat down in the armchair across from Cole, without waiting for an invitation. Vivian told me about the arrangement, Constance said. She folded her hands in her lap. I wanted to see for myself what kind of man would agree to something like this. Cole felt his defenses rise. I'm just trying to keep my job and take care of my daughter. Constance's expression didn't change. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here because my daughter is about to lose everything she's worked for, and I won't stand by and watch that happen. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. She set it on the coffee table between them. Brandon has been embezzling from the company for the past 2 years. Small amounts, buried in operational expenses. He's also been paying off board members to vote against Vivian. This envelope contains proof, bank records, email correspondence. Enough to bury him. Cole stared at the envelope. Why are you giving this to me? Because Vivian won't use it, Constance said. She still believes people will do the right thing if given the chance. She thinks the truth will be enough. But I know Brandon. He doesn't fight fair. And neither should we. Cole picked up the envelope. The paper was thick official. He opened it and scanned the first few pages. Numbers, dates, transfers that didn't add up, messages that made his stomach turn. He looked back at Constance. "If you've had this, why didn't you give it to her before?" "Because I was hoping she wouldn't need it," Constance said. "I was hoping she'd find another way. But now Brandon's backed her into a corner, and corners are dangerous places." She stood up, smoothing her coat. "The board meeting is Thursday. If Brandon tries to destroy her, you destroy him first." "Understood." Cole nodded slowly. Constance walked to the door, then turned back. Her expression softened slightly as she looked at Harper, then at Cole. "For what it's worth, I think you're good for her. She's been alone too long. She forgot what it feels like to have someone in her corner." She paused at the threshold. "And Mr. Bennett, when this is over, don't let her push you away. She'll try. She always does." She left before Cole could respond. Harper came over and climbed onto the couch next to him, staring at the envelope. "Who is that?" Harper asked. "Miss V's mom," Cole said. He was still holding the envelope, feeling the weight of what was inside. She seemed nice, kind of scary, but nice. Cole looked down at his daughter. "Yeah, that's probably accurate." Wednesday passed in a blur. Cole went to work, kept his head down, avoided Curtis and the others. That evening, Vivian came to his apartment. It was the first time she'd been there. She looked around the small space with an expression Cole couldn't read. He handed her the envelope. She opened it and read through the documents in silence. When she finished, she looked up at him. "My mother brought you this." "Yeah." Vivian closed the envelope. "She shouldn't have." "Maybe not," Cole said. "But she did. And now we have options." Vivian set the envelope on the table. "If I use this, I'm no better than Brandon. Fighting dirty. Using leverage." "You're protecting yourself," Cole said. "There's a difference." Vivian looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked up the envelope again. "Okay. But we only use it if we have to, if he goes after us first." "Fair enough." Thursday morning arrived too fast. Cole dropped Harper off at school and drove to the company headquarters. Vivian had asked him to be there for the board meeting. She said it would help if he was in the room. A show of support. A united front. Cole didn't argue. He wore the suit from the gala. It still fit like it belonged to someone else. Vivian met him outside the boardroom. She looked calm, but Cole could see the tension in her shoulders. She was wearing a navy suit that made her look every inch the CEO. In her hands was the envelope from Constance. "Are you ready?" she asked. Cole nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." They walked into the boardroom together. The space was larger than Cole expected. A long table dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs. Board members were already seated. Brandon was at the far end, leaning back in his chair, with the kind of confidence that came from knowing he had the winning hand. His eyes locked on Cole as they entered. The smile that crossed his face was predatory. The meeting started with procedural items, budget reports, quarterly projections. Cole sat in a chair along the wall, trying to blend into the background. Vivian sat at the head of the table, answering questions with the same controlled precision she brought to everything. Then Brandon cleared his throat. "Before we move on," he said, "I think we need to address the elephant in the room." The room went quiet. Vivian's expression didn't change, but Cole saw her hands tighten on the armrests of her chair. Brandon pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen. The monitor on the wall came to life. Security footage from the supermarket. The same footage Vivian had shown Cole days earlier. The board members leaned forward, watching. Cole felt every eye in the room shift toward him. The video played out in silence. Brandon stepping close to Vivian. Vivian grabbing Cole's hand. The exchange. The lie forming in real time. When it ended, Brandon set the tablet down and looked around the table. This footage is from 3 weeks ago, the same day Vivian claims she and Mr. Bennett have been dating for 6 months. The timestamp doesn't lie. Neither does the transaction record showing a $10,000 payment from Vivian's personal account to Mr. Bennett's, dated the day after this encounter. The room erupted in murmurs. Brandon's smile widened. The silver-haired man from the gala, whose nameplate read Thomas Whitmore, held up a hand for silence. "Is this true, Vivian? Did you fabricate the timeline and pay this man?" Vivian stood. She looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes in turn. Her voice was steady. "Yes." The murmurs grew louder. Whitmore's expression hardened. "Care to explain?" Vivian took a breath. "Brandon confronted me in that supermarket. He implied I couldn't lead this company without a man by my side. He was leveraging my personal life against my professional credibility. So I asked Cole to help me change that perception. We agreed to say we'd been together longer than we had. It was a calculated decision. And yes, it was dishonest." Brandon leaned forward, his voice dripping with false concern. "You paid him $10,000, Vivian, for services rendered. That's not a relationship. That's a transaction." Vivian didn't flinch. "I offered him compensation for the disruption to his life and the risk to his reputation. The money hasn't been paid yet. It was contingent on completing the agreement." Whitmore looked at Cole. "Mr. Bennett, do you have anything to say about this?" Cole stood. His heart was pounding, but he kept his voice steady. "She asked for help. I said yes, not just because of the money, because what Brandon was doing to her wasn't right, and because somewhere along the way, pretending stopped feeling like pretending." Brandon laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. How convenient. The warehouse worker falls in love with the CEO. This is a fairy tale, not a boardroom. Cole turned to face him directly. "You want to talk about what belongs in a boardroom, Brandon. Let's talk about embezzlement. Let's talk about the $215,000 you've siphoned from operational budgets over the past 2 years. Let's talk about the board members you've been paying off to vote against Vivian." The room went dead silent. Brandon's expression froze. Cole walked over to Vivian and took the envelope from her hands. He tossed it onto the table in front of Whitmore. "It's all in there. Bank records, emails, dates, amounts, transfer authorizations with Brandon's signature. Everything." Brandon's face went pale. He looked at Vivian with something close to hatred. "Where did you get that?" Vivian's voice was ice. "Does it matter? It's the truth, unlike the narrative you've been selling about me." Whitmore picked up the envelope and started reading. His expression darkened with each page. He looked at Brandon with something close to disgust. "Is this accurate?" Brandon stood up. His composure was cracking, voice rising. "This is a setup. She's trying to discredit me because she knows she's losing. She lied to all of you about her relationship, and now she's fabricating evidence to—" "The bank records don't lie," Whitmore interrupted. His voice was hard. "Neither do the emails. You signed these transfers yourself, Brandon. Your name is all over this. We can verify every transaction." Brandon looked around the table. The other board members were reading through the documents, now passing pages back and forth. Their expressions ranged from shock to anger. Brandon grabbed his jacket and walked toward the door. Before he left, he turned back to Vivian. "This isn't over," he said. Vivian met his eyes without flinching. "Yes, it is." Brandon left. The door closed behind him with a sharp click. Whitmore set the documents down and looked at Vivian. "We'll need to verify all of this, launch a formal investigation. If it's accurate, Brandon will face legal consequences, criminal charges." Vivian nodded. "I understand." Whitmore's gaze shifted to Cole, then back to Vivian. "As for the two of you and this arrangement, I don't care how your relationship started. What matters is whether you can lead this company effectively. Can you?" Vivian straightened. "Yes, I can." Whitmore looked around the table, all in favor of maintaining Vivian Cross as CEO and initiating a full investigation into Brandon Walsh's financial activities. Hands went up around the table. Not all of them, but enough. More than enough. Whitmore nodded. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. The board members filed out slowly, some stopping to speak with Vivian in low voices. Cole stayed where he was watching. When the room finally emptied, Vivian walked over to him. She looked exhausted but relieved. We did it, she said quietly. Cole nodded. Yeah, we did. Vivian reached into her bag and pulled out the check, the same one she'd shown him at the coffee shop. $10,000. She held it out. You earned this. More than earned it. Cole looked at the check, then at Vivian. He took it from her hand and tore it in half. Her eyes widened. What are you doing? I don't want it, Cole said. Not anymore. This stopped being a transaction for me weeks ago. If it's still just business for you, then I'm out. But if it's more than that, if what we have is real, then we don't need this between us. Vivian stared at the torn check in his hands. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. It's real. For me, too. It's been real for a while. I just didn't know how to say it. Cole stepped closer. Then say it now. Vivian's voice came out barely above a whisper. I don't want this to end. I don't want you to be a transaction or an arrangement. I want you. And Harper. I want this to be real. Cole pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his chest, and he felt her shoulders shake. He held her until she stopped trembling. When she pulled back, he wiped the tears from her cheeks and kissed her. It was soft, honest, the kind of kiss that didn't need an audience or a script. What happens now? Vivian asked. Cole thought about Harper, about the apartment, about the life he'd been trying to hold together with hope and desperation. I don't know, but I think we figure it out together, as a real couple. No more pretending. Vivian smiled. It was the first completely unguarded smile he'd seen from her. I'd like that. 6 months later, Cole moved into Vivian's house with Harper. It was a big change. The house had more rooms than they knew what to do with, a backyard where Harper could run, and enough space for all of them to breathe. Harper loved it immediately. She had her own room with windows that overlooked the garden. Vivian taught her how to bake cookies on Sunday afternoons, and Harper started calling her Miss V less and just Vivian more. Cole found a new position in the company's logistics department. It was off the warehouse floor, better pay, better hours. He could pick Harper up from school now, could help with homework, could breathe without constantly calculating which bill to pay first. Curtis had been rehired after the investigation cleared out 3 corrupt board members and restructured the entire executive team. He'd apologized to Cole one afternoon in the break room, admitting he'd been wrong to judge. They weren't close friends, but the hostility was gone. Brandon faced criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud. The trial was still ongoing, but his reputation was destroyed. The board had hired an independent firm to audit the company's finances, and more irregularities kept surfacing. Constance called Vivian once a week to check in, and sometimes she'd ask to speak to Cole, offering subtle advice about navigating life with her daughter. One evening in late October, Vivian found Cole in the kitchen after Harper had gone to bed. She wrapped her arms around him from behind and rested her chin on his shoulder. He turned to face her, and she pulled a small box from her pocket. She opened it. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. I've been thinking, she said quietly. Cole looked at the ring, then at her. About what? About making this official. What do you think? Cole stared at the ring. He thought about the supermarket, about the fear in her eyes when Brandon had cornered her, about the desperate gamble they'd both taken, about the fake relationship that had somehow become the most real thing in his life, about Harper, upstairs, asleep in a house that finally felt like home. He took the box from her hand and pulled out the ring. I think, he said, slipping it onto her finger, that I should have said yes the first time you asked me a crazy question in a supermarket. Vivian laughed. It was full and genuine, and completely unguarded. Cole kissed her, and she kissed him back. Outside, the city lights flickered against the dark. Inside, everything felt solid, real, like something built to last, like something worth fighting for, like something that started with a lie but ended with the truth. And that truth was simple. Sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments, if you're brave enough to see them through.